The Sentinelese. Imagine a people who have lived unchanged for 600 years on an island the size of Manhattan. The Sentinelese are perhaps humanity's last pure window into our ancient past. Living on North Sentinel Island in the Bay of Bengal, they represent one of the most isolated human societies on Earth. What makes the Sentinelese truly unique is their complete rejection of outside contact. Unlike other isolated tribes who might occasionally trade or interact with outsiders, the Sentinelese respond to any approach with immediate hostility. This isn't mere xenophobia, it's a survival strategy that has kept them alive for millennia. Their island is like a time capsule of human prehistory. They still live as hunter-gatherers, making tools and weapons from salvaged metal, but otherwise maintaining a lifestyle that would be familiar to our ancestors from the Stone Age. They build basic shelters, craft canoes, and hunt with bows and arrows. Perhaps most fascinating is their complete self-sufficiency. Everything they need comes from their small island and its surrounding waters. They've developed such an intimate knowledge of their environment that they even survived the devastating 2004 tsunami. When helicopters flew over to check on them, they responded with arrows. They needed no help. The Indian government has made the profound decision to protect their isolation. No one is allowed to approach within 5 nautical miles of their island. This isn't just about protecting them from disease. It's about preserving their right to live as they choose, maintaining a unique human culture that has survived since the Ice Age. Their existence raises deep questions about civilization and progress. In an age of smartphones and space travel, the Sentinelese remind us that humans can live completely outside the modern world and, perhaps, in their own way, be richer for it. Vale du Javari tribes. Deep in the Amazon's Vale du Javari region lies one of Earth's last great mysteries, a vast territory housing the largest concentration of uncontacted tribes in the world. This Brazilian valley, larger than Austria, is home to at least 16 isolated indigenous groups. These tribes live in a way that would be familiar to the first humans who entered the Amazon thousands of years ago. They practice sophisticated hunting techniques, maintain complex knowledge of medicinal plants, and live in complete harmony with one of Earth's most challenging environments. What makes Veiled Javari's tribes unique is their deliberate choice to remain isolated. Unlike the Sentinelese, who live on an island, these groups maintain their isolation within a continent. They move through the forest like ghosts, actively avoiding contact while defending their territories from intruders. Their presence is known mainly through aerial observations and the discovery of their gardens, shelters, and tools. Each tribe has developed its own unique way of life, with distinct languages, customs, and technological adaptations to their specific part of the forest. The tragedy is that their world is shrinking. Illegal logging, mining, and drug trafficking threaten their territories. Despite legal protection, the vastness of the Amazon makes enforcement difficult. It's like watching the last pages of an ancient book slowly burn away. These tribes represent an extraordinary experiment in human resilience and cultural survival. They've maintained their independence despite centuries of pressure from the outside world, preserving knowledge and ways of life that exist nowhere else on Earth.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Korowai of West Papua. High in the treetops of West Papua's rainforest live the Korowai, a people who literally built their world above the earth, known for their remarkable tree houses built up to 140 feet high. The Korowai represent one of the last societies to live primarily in the canopy of a rainforest. Their tree houses aren't just homes, they're a complete adaptation to their environment. Built without nails or modern tools, these structures protect them from floods, insects, and rival clans. The engineering knowledge required to build these homes has been passed down through generations, representing a unique architectural tradition that exists nowhere else. The Korowai's worldview is as distinctive as their homes. They live in a universe populated by spirits and natural forces, where the forest isn't just a resource but a living entity filled with meaning. Their understanding of their environment is so deep that they can navigate the forest at night and predict weather patterns with remarkable accuracy. What makes the Korowai particularly fascinating is their relatively recent contact with the outside world. First contacted by researchers in the 1970s, some Korowai groups still maintain a highly traditional lifestyle, though others have begun to adopt elements of modern life. Their society operates without formal leadership or social hierarchy, making decisions through consensus. This egalitarian system has allowed them to maintain social stability for countless generations, challenging our assumptions about the necessity of formal government. The Korowai story is also one of rapid change. As logging and mining encroach on their territory, and as younger members become curious about the outside world, their traditional way of life faces unprecedented challenges. They stand at a crossroads between preservation and transformation. Mashco Piro. The Mashco Piro of Peru represent one of the most intriguing cases of voluntary isolation in the modern world. Unlike some other isolated tribes, they occasionally emerge from the forest, giving us rare glimpses into a way of life that has remained largely unchanged for millennia. Their story is deeply intertwined with trauma. They are descendants of groups who fled into the forest during the rubber boom of the late 19th century, when indigenous people were enslaved and massacred. This historical memory shapes their careful approach to the outside world, where contact is minimal and on their own terms. What makes the Mashco Piro unique is their adaptive isolation. They maintain their traditional lifestyle while being aware of the modern world around them. They've been observed using metal tools, scavenged from nearby settlements, showing a pragmatic approach to useful technology. While rejecting broader cultural contact, their nomadic lifestyle is a masterclass in sustainable living. Moving through vast territories, they leave almost no permanent impact on the forest. Their hunting techniques and knowledge of the forest are so sophisticated that they can survive in areas where others would struggle to find food. Perhaps most fascinating is their complex relationship with the modern world. While they generally avoid contact, they occasionally appear near riverbanks or settlements, sometimes requesting specific items through gesture. This selective interaction shows a deliberate strategy of maintaining independence while adapting to changing circumstances. Their situation raises profound questions about human rights and self-determination. How do we protect their right to isolation while ensuring their survival in a world where their territory is increasingly threatened by illegal logging and drug trafficking? The Jarawa of India's Andaman Islands tell a story of resilience in the face of mounting pressure from the modern world. Unlike their neighbors, the Sentinelese, the Jarawa live in closer proximity to civilization, creating a unique dynamic between isolation and contact. Their territory is crossed by a major highway, the Andaman Trunk Road, creating a situation where ancient and modern worlds literally intersect. Despite this intrusion, the Jarawa have maintained much of their traditional way of life, hunting with bows and arrows, gathering forest products, and living in communal dwellings. What makes the Jarawa remarkable is their physical and cultural distinctiveness. They are direct descendants of the first human migrations out of Africa, carrying genetic markers that connect them to humanity's earliest journeys. Their language, unrelated to any other known tongue, might preserve sounds our ancestors used 700 years ago. Their relationship with the forest is profound. They can identify hundreds of plant species and their uses, track animals with uncanny accuracy, and navigate dense jungle in complete darkness. This knowledge, accumulated over millennia, represents an irreplaceable archive of human adaptation. The challenges they face are intense. Tourism, encroachment, and disease threaten their survival. Some have become objects of human safaris, where tourists try to photograph them like zoo animals. Yet they maintain their dignity and independence, adapting to changes while preserving their core identity. Their story raises crucial questions about development and conservation. The Jarawa challenge us to consider whether there's a way to protect traditional cultures without forcing them into complete isolation or total assimilation. Great Andamanese. The Great Andamanese represent both a warning and a hope for isolated peoples. Once a thriving group of 10 tribes with thousands of members, they now number fewer than 100, making them one of the most critically endangered indigenous peoples on Earth. Their history is a testament to the devastating impact of colonial contact. British colonization in the 19th century brought diseases, addiction, and displacement. From a population of several thousands, they were reduced to just 19 individuals by 1961. Their recovery since then, while still precarious, shows remarkable resilience. What makes them unique is their position between worlds. Unlike their isolated neighbors, the Great Andamanese have adapted to modern life while struggling to preserve their cultural heritage. They maintain some traditional practices while living in modern housing and receiving government support. Their language situation is particularly poignant. Once speaking 10 distinct languages, they now largely communicate in Hindi and a Creole language. The last speakers of their traditional languages are passing away, taking with them thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and wisdom. Despite these challenges, they maintain a strong sense of identity and are working to preserve what remains of their culture. Young people are learning traditional songs, stories, and forest knowledge from their elders, creating a bridge between past and future. Their story serves as a crucial lesson in both the fragility and resilience of indigenous cultures, showing both what can be lost through uncontrolled contact and what can be preserved through careful cultural preservation efforts. Mbuti Pyu. Deep in the Congo Basin's Ituri forest live the Mbuti, often known as pygmies, representing one of humanity's oldest forest-dwelling cultures. Their average height of around 4.5 feet isn't just a genetic quirk, it's an evolutionary adaptation to life under the dense forest canopy. The Mbuti's relationship with the forest goes beyond mere survival. They see the forest as their parent, provider, and protector, referring to it as Endura, or the forest that is both mother and father. This worldview shapes every aspect of their lives, from their hunting practices to their spiritual beliefs. What makes them extraordinary is their mastery of sound. The Mbuti use complex vocal techniques to communicate through the dense forest, creating polyphonic music that mirrors the forest's natural sounds. Their famous Molimo ceremony, where they wake up the forest with singing and trumpets made from trees, shows their deep connection to their environment. Their hunting technique is a marvel of coordination. Using nets that can stretch for hundreds of feet, entire groups work together in perfect harmony, demonstrating a level of cooperation that anthropologists consider unique among hunter-gatherer societies. Despite their incredible resilience, many Mbuti groups face unprecedented challenges. Civil war, deforestation, and forced modernization threaten their traditional way of life. Some groups have maintained isolation in the deepest parts of the forest, while others navigate a complex relationship with the modern world. The Mbuti's knowledge of medicinal plants has attracted international attention, with some of their traditional medicines being studied by pharmaceutical companies, raising questions about indigenous intellectual property rights. Kawahiva. The Kawahiva of Brazil's Mato Grosso state are among the most endangered, isolated peoples on Earth. Living in small, highly mobile groups in the Amazon rainforest, they represent a culture constantly on the move, not by choice, but for survival. What makes their story particularly heartbreaking is that their nomadic lifestyle is largely a response to trauma. Decades of violent encounters with outsiders have forced them to abandon their traditional semi-permanent villages, instead adopting a strategy of constant movement and avoidance. Their adaptation to this forced nomadism is remarkable. They've developed techniques to leave minimal traces of their presence, moving through the forest like shadows. They can set up and break down camps quickly, leaving barely a footprint, a skill born of necessity and survival. Despite their challenges, the Kawahiva maintains sophisticated forest knowledge. They use over 20 different types of honey and have an intimate understanding of seasonal changes that allows them to track and predict animal movements with remarkable accuracy. The few glimpses we have of their society suggest a rich cultural tradition. They maintain complex kinship systems and have elaborate methods for passing knowledge to younger generations, all while constantly moving to avoid contact with outsiders. Their territory, though legally protected, faces constant invasion from illegal loggers and miners. Their survival hangs by a thread, making them a powerful symbol of the urgent need to protect isolated peoples' rights and territories. Ayoreo. In the heart of South America's Gran Chaco region, the Ayoreo represent one of the last uncontacted peoples living outside the Amazon. Their territory spans the border between Paraguay and Bolivia, in one of the world's most rapidly disappearing forests. What makes the Ayoreo unique is their adaptation to the Chaco's extreme environment, a place where temperatures can swing from blazing heat to near freezing in a single day. They've developed sophisticated techniques for finding water in this semi-arid landscape and can predict weather patterns with remarkable accuracy. Their worldview is built around the concept of emi, a complex term that means both forest and world. For the Ayoreo, there is no separation between their territory and their universe. Every plant, animal, and natural phenomenon has its place in their rich mythology. Perhaps most fascinating is their timekeeping system, based not on the sun, but on the movements of the 7 stars, Pleiades. This astronomical knowledge guides their yearly cycle of activities, showing a deep understanding of natural patterns. The tragedy of the Ayoreo is ongoing. Their territory is being rapidly converted to cattle ranches, forcing many groups into unwanted contact. Those who remain isolated are literally running out of space to maintain their traditional way of life. Their story also includes remarkable acts of resistance. Some Ayoreo groups have managed to maintain their isolation despite being surrounded by deforestation, showing extraordinary determination to preserve their independence and cultural identity. The Ange of India, Little Andaman Island, are masters of marine survival, representing one of the last peoples who live primarily from the sea in the Indian Ocean region. Their population of fewer than 100 people carries genetic markers that trace back to the earliest human migrations out of Africa. Their knowledge of the ocean is extraordinary. The Onge can predict weather patterns by observing subtle changes in wind and wave patterns, and their traditional calendar is based on the scents of flowers that bloom during different fishing seasons, a remarkable example of how human senses can be refined through generations of experience. What makes them unique is their resilience in the face of massive population collapse. From several thousand in the 1900s to barely 100 today, they've managed to maintain their cultural identity and traditional practices despite devastating losses to disease and displacement. The Onge worldview divides the universe into natural and human realms, but unlike Western thought, sees humans as the weaker party, who must constantly negotiate with natural forces. This philosophy has helped them maintain a sustainable relationship with their environment for millennia. Their traditional knowledge includes sophisticated use of medicinal plants and hunting techniques. They can track fish underwater by following subtle changes in water movement and can navigate at night using star patterns and wave directions. Today, they face challenges from illegal fishing in their waters and encroachment on their land. Yet they continue to adapt while maintaining their core identity, showing remarkable cultural resilience.